This week's guest on the podcast is the lovely Desi Karandaglidis, who is balancing both working full-time in food science and food quality and building up her own business on the side. And Desi and I have known each other for years now. We've been lucky enough to meet in person at one of the networking events I ran quite a while ago now. That was probably pre-COVID, wasn't it?
Yeah. Oh, actually, during COVID, 2021, I think, something like that.
Yeah, somewhere between all the Melbourne lockdowns that we were stuck in.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've had the pleasure of being online friends and meeting in person, and I've loved watching Desi's journey and seeing her consistency in growing a business. And we're going to be speaking to that later in the episode. But first up, Desi, thank you so much for being here, and I'm really looking forward to talking about that balance of the working full time and growing your business and everything that you've experienced so far in your career.
No worries. Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited. Definitely.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Let's get into it by talking about how you actually got interested in health and nutrition and what inspired you to go become a qualified nutritionist.
Well, I'm actually an ex-beauty therapist, so that was my first major industry that I was working in. And then I was about 21 and I just thought, I can't do this. I don't like this. Like, there's no room to grow. And I thought, like, I enjoyed, like, at school, I enjoyed health, I enjoyed food, I enjoyed all of that. And I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I saw there was a course at Deakin, it was food science and nutrition. And I thought, well, that sounds fun. Let's just give that a go. Mm-hmm. And I remember halfway through my degree, I thought to myself, okay, so there's two choices. You either go down the nutrition dietetics path or you go down the food science path. And I at the time got like a small work experience at a company that was close to my home at the time. And I thought, this is great. Like, I love this. I can literally write up a document about like chocolate and like call that work. Like, this is so good. Like, I can work with muffins and cakes and all that. Like, I've got a big sweet tooth as well. So I actually thought I hit the jackpot and I loved it. I ended up getting a job at it was actually during my degree, because there was one of the girls had like a bit of a family emergency. So I actually ended up getting a job in this company covering for her. And it was working in a lab, doing testing with different flavors, testing the raw materials that came in, testing different flavors like that were going out, creating documents and things like that. And I thought, like, this is great. I really, really hit the jackpot. And COVID came around. Yeah. And I remember just thinking, I don't like this. Like, I feel constricted. I feel like there's no freedom, which, I mean, there wasn't freedom, but there was just like so much lack of freedom coming from all these different directions. And I thought, like, I don't like this. And I initially thought that having a business, so like my whole family have businesses, like my grandparents and my parents, and like you see them literally working hard because they had like physical businesses. And then I was seeing all these people online having businesses and they had so much freedom. Like, you don't need to ask for permission. You don't need to do this. You don't need to ask anyone for anything. And I thought, I want to do this. This is what I want to do. And at the time I was working for a different company, but similar sort of industry. At the time I was working for a company that made infant formula, so similar sort of quality roles, testing raw materials, testing finished products. Obviously at the time I was reviewing documents for infant formula, not chocolate.
Yeah, different.
Yeah. I mean, it's same but different. And then at the time I started posting things on Instagram. At the time, it started off like I knew I wanted something in that health and fitness, like to utilize the nutrition side of my degree. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, I don't know what I want to do, because I love the health and fitness side, but I also love the nutrition side as well. So I was like, am I going to go down, like the sports side, the fitness side of nutrition, like, sports nutrition? And one day I just thought, like, one thing that really, really frustrates me is, women's periods and hormones and things like that, because I remember at the time, I can't actually pinpoint when this happened, but I remember hearing people, I think it was ATP Science, mm-hmm. I'm not sure if you're familiar with their podcast, but they would say things like, all these things about your periods that's not normal. And I think to myself, all right, they're saying this, my doctor's saying this isn't to hang like shade on any doctors or anything, but like my doctors are saying this, these guys on the podcast are saying this, and then I just kept hearing more and more people, like different sources, saying things that, you know, all this stuff about your period and hormones that's not normal. And I thought, all right, like, makes sense. Why don't I just use my nutrition degree and become my own guinea pig and see how much, like, how valid is what they're saying? And I used to have like really, really bad period pain myself, which I know it's TMI, but it's totally relevant. But
not at all. For nutritionists, we talk about this stuff all the time.
literally, if you look at a nutritionist like Google history, it's like periods, poo, like digestion.
All the things people normally don't talk about. We're like,
we're just like, I love it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, tell me more.
yeah, literally. So yeah, I used to have really, really bad pain. And then I started obviously with utilizing my own skills that I'd learned and you know, becoming my own guinea pig, which is what you learn a lot through, you know, the sports side of things and the fitness side of things. You learn how to be your own guinea pig. And I found this formula that worked for me. And I think it was around mid 2021, I like experienced my first ever pain-free period. Like, and I was like, oh my God, I need to like essentially vomit this all over everybody because it's like the best thing ever.
Yeah.
And that's what kickstarted me wanting to do what I do. That's basically where I started. So now I'm just building that up because I really desire to help everyone feel. It sounds cliche, but I want everyone to feel the way I feel, not just with period pain, but with just everything, because it's like, I'm sure you know, as a nutritionist, like a lot of us are just suffering and we're just so like oblivious to it, and you just really want to help people feel their best and be their best.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm doing on the side, on top of my 9 to 5. So I'm still working in quality. I'm working for a different company at the moment. This one's a lot closer to home. So I work on that during the day. And then when I'm not working, I'm working on my business, essentially.
Yeah, it's amazing. It takes a lot of like discipline and that inner fire to work 9 to 5 and then keep showing up in your business. So celebrating you for the way that you are able to just keep going, even though I'm sure there's days where you're like, I've just had a full day at work. I don't want to work on my business, but I'm going to do it because you're so passionate about it. And that's a real testament to that passion and that fire.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely hard. I mean, I'm sure you remember when you were working for 28, there are some days it's like, I just don't want into it today, but it's totally like, you just see that vision, like you visualize your dream life and you're like, this is what I need to do to get there. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think like yours is a beautiful example of like turning your mess into your message, like taking your story and your journey and being like, I want to really help other people with that. So it's so close to home for you. So it does help with that why and that motivation, and helping you just keep showing up for those people who just have no idea that their period can be pain-free. And you want to be that person to be able to support them to that and like just see the relief they feel when they have a pain-free period like you did back in 2021.
It's still going today, and I'm just like, the more evidence I build with myself, the more evidence I can like show people that this is legitimate. This is not some woo-woo thing.
Yeah, totally. Makes such a difference when we change our food, lifestyle, mindset, all the things that you're passionate about sharing as well. Yeah, beautiful. So I want to unpack both of those. I'd love to talk more about your business, but first let's talk about what it's like working in food quality. Because I said to you earlier in this, before we started recording, that I've actually never had anyone on who works in food science or food quality. So I'd love to kind of like speak a little bit about that. And then, would love to talk about your business to date and like as you continue to grow it and do all of that. So when it comes to food science and food quality, what kind of roles and responsibilities do you have? Obviously, there was like the testing different flavors and writing up those pages about the products. Are they the kind of main things? Or tell us more about your day-to-day experience.
Yeah, so with working in food manufacturing and food science, there's generally 2 different paths that most people go down. I decided to go down the quality path. And then there's also innovations, product development, and things like that. I feel like quality is more, I wouldn't say it's not black and white, but it's more structured, which I kind of like, because I've got that like A-type organized sort of personality. But when it comes to quality, obviously we're responsible for testing products. Like I've had it doesn't, because I've worked with infant formula. I've also worked with sweets and baked goods, beverages, essential oils, and now I'm working with like, frozen meals and things like that. And like regardless of which area I worked in, it's very similar in the sense that you are testing raw materials that come into the site, and then you're also testing the finished product that leaves the site. The testing that you do kind of depends. Like when I was working in essential oils, for example, we would test like the viscosity of the product, we would test the pH of the product, and obviously different foods, different things have different risks. So like, say, for example, when I was working in essential oils, like most people wouldn't be swallowing essential oil. So the only risk that you'd have is, maybe the product being a little bit cloudy and things like that. So there wasn't really much potential risk to the customer themselves. Whereas working in like, infant formula, for example, we would have to do like testing to make sure that the product, dissolves properly and that it's got enough moisture and things like that, because that's like, obviously being infants, it's like infant formula is basically one level down from being pharmaceutical, because pharmaceuticals like really, really high grade, intense and things like that. Like if certain rooms in that factory, you'd have to like not only wear a lab coat and hairnet, you'd also have to wear on top of it like a disposable onesie and gloves and things like that, just really being protective of the product. And yeah, another thing that we do is a lot of like, setting up systems as well. So we also do checking of the factory, so glass and hard plastic, checking to see if anything's harmful to the product, will it get in the product. We check bait stations around the sites as well to make sure that there's no potential pests coming in and out, looking after pest registers. We also look after, it's more of a, not really a day-to-day sort of role, but it's more of a higher up sort of role. They will look after things like labeling and artwork of the product as well. So, like packaged foods, like how they'll have the nutrition panel, they'll have the ingredients and like looking after that sort of stuff. And we also do like just walking around the factory to make sure that, operators aren't having snacks or things that they shouldn't be wearing, like, jewelry or, soft drinks and things like that as well. Audits are a big part of working in quality as well. So we have, depending on who your product is marketed to, you might have an organic audit, kosher and halal. And then there's also like big, I think they're called, I'm gone completely blank, but just your big audits are like usually 3 to 4 days that are just to enable you to actually run the place. Like usually international, like SQF audits, I'm not sure what that stands for, but it's just like essentially the big audit that like makes sure that you actually running the place properly and things like that. So that's the quality side of it. And I haven't worked in like product development, but I know that a lot of them will just, there's a lot of testing, like developing new products, kind of like, I would say it's more like recipe development where you're just developing new things to sell to customers. A lot of, like my current role, for example, like they sell to some supermarkets, and the way it works in those roles is that, like, say you pitching to Coles or Woolies, you'll pitch them 30 recipes and they'll only take like 4 or 5. So there's a lot of things like that. Like it's a lot of their role to source new ingredients, for example. Like I don't like my current pasta supplier, I want a new one, for example. They will be the ones to source that. And yeah, it's really, really, really fast paced, really, really busy. But there's always like, lots to learn and lots to do, whether you're both in quality or whether in product development and innovations.
Yeah, that sounds so fascinating and so different to anything I've ever done or heard other people talk about. So thank you for sharing that insight into all of the different facets of that. Yeah, it sounds really cool. And so you mentioned earlier that you did a food science and nutrition degree. So would you need a food science degree to go into a role like yours? I imagine you would, because it sounds, very different.
Yeah, definitely. Some people have done just plain science degrees. Some people have done food science and technology. A lot of people have done food science and nutrition as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's more of the like sciencey sort of subjects that you would need to get into that.
Yeah.
I worked, one of my jobs, one of the girls had, I think, masters in chemical engineering, and she ended up getting a role in quality as well.
Yep.
If you want to work in quality, you do need to do a HACCP certificate. It's not, well, at the time they were wording it like you kind of should, but they didn't say you have to, but it was like really, really recommended. So HACCP essentially stands for Hazard Analysis and Critical Control Points. So an example of a critical control point will be like having a metal detector that works, for example, or something that's like really will pose a risk to the customer, like getting metal in their food or getting like rocks in their apricots for the yogurt, for example. Just so you are aware of hazards and how to analyze them and things like that. So that's just an initial thing. But if you go straight into product development, you don't need that.
Yep.
But most people, because product development is quite hard to get into, they'll use quality as like a sidestep to get into product development.
Yeah, okay, cool. And do you get to use like your nutrition degree to influence what goes into the products, or is that more the product development side because they're actually choosing what goes into it?
It'll be the product development side,
Yeah.
but at the same time, it kind of depends on like who you're marketing to. Like a lot of the food industry is just marketed to, like I'm sure, you
Yeah.
know, like a frozen meal, which as nutritionists, well, I'm not going to get into that, but yeah, it depends who
Yeah.
you're marketing to.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, awesome. And are there any other like cool things you've done throughout your career working in food manufacturing and quality that you want to like mention before we start talking about business stuff, or any like little pointers for anyone who this has really spiked their interest and they want to go down that path as well?
Well, it's really, really broad. So, like I said, I've worked, obviously, like I'm in food, but I've also worked in essential oils as well.
Yeah.
And I know that if you do enjoy that quality sort of side, you can go down pharmaceuticals. Like one of my previous roles, there was a girl working there who was an exchange, no, not exchange student. She was doing like a work visa from Ireland, and
Yeah.
her background was pharmaceuticals. And she's now continued into pharmaceuticals, like, working in that sort of area.
Cool.
I'd say a pretty standout thing that I've done is when I was working in essential oils, because I'm an ex-beauty therapist as well. And when I was working in the lab there, I was a department of one.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
whilst it is challenging, them rely on you for everything quality related, they'll also come to you for everything that's like complaints related as well.
Okay.
And it was somewhat interesting. Some of the complaints that we got, it was kind of like, okay, am I using my food science brain or am I using my beauty brain? Because like we used to make things like serums and lotions as well, and like face mist and things like that. So I'd be looking at this complaint like, is this customer, like, is this person using something that they shouldn't be using, or is this like actually something wrong with the product? So I thought that was pretty interesting, using everything that I've learned in my career span, essentially.
Totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like perfect that you had that background in beauty as well. And yeah, I love the way wherever our journey takes us, all of the stepping stones end up playing a role, even if like you weren't to use your beauty in your food quality or your essential oil role that you were in. There's still other things we would get from it, or other ways that it's turned us into the person that we are today and supporting us in our current role, as related or how unrelated it may be. So that's so cool.
Yeah, and like the food industry is not going anywhere. Like I remember
Yeah.
at the start of my degree, they were saying that our population is expected to grow so much that in order to keep up with all the food demand that we will need in the next, like, I think they said 30 years,
Yeah.
we will need to be producing double the amount of food that we have right now just to keep up with population growth. So it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
so huge. How
Yeah.
long ago did you graduate, speaking of, when you were studying?
2018, the end of 2018.
Awesome. Yeah. So you've
Yeah.
been in like these roles for a solid amount of time. And yeah, it sounds like you've experienced some really cool things.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting seeing like, what goes into making something. And it's so interesting seeing, like, we've all got our own little kitchen at home. Like it's not little, but it just looks so little compared to seeing like a vat that will make like 300 kilos of sauce.
Yeah,
And you're like,
true.
this is crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I can't even properly imagine that because I've never seen anything quite to that scale. That's so cool though. It would be really
Yeah.
fascinating to just, yeah, see it done in such mass quantities.
Yeah, and there's so many times where I'll just be like just watching operators or watching like them make something, and I'm like,
Yeah.
this machine work is actually really interesting, like seeing how like
Mm.
we can go from, you know, something so small and, you know, handmade to like something making like, I don't know, 2,000 frozen meals a day, or for example, but
Yeah, it's
or
huge.
like 500 liters of peppermint oil or something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah,
Yeah, wow. Yeah, it would be a whole other world, hey.
literally. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, that's super fascinating. I'm glad we dove more into that. And that's definitely spiked my interest. And yeah, sounds like a really cool, different role as well. And it's
yeah.
again another example of a different way we can go as nutritionists, or in your case, like food scientists. Like,
Mm.
yeah, really, really
You're not
cool.
going anywhere that industry.
Yeah,
Definitely
definitely
say that.
not.
There's so many. That's the good thing. There's so many opportunities in that industry as well. So yeah.
Yeah, very cool. And now shifting gears to talk about your business, tell us a little bit about your journey so far and like the kinds of things you offer, or the kinds of things you have offered. And yeah, let us know where you're currently at in your business.
Oh wow, there's a lot to
It's a
unpack
big
there.
question. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So my business is essentially like I mentioned, like I it started off with period pain for myself, but now it's turned into helping women with like anything and everything from like heavy periods to painful periods, irregular periods, anything like hormonal related.
Yeah, beautiful.
I haven't tackled the world of pregnancy and menopause, and I don't
Yeah.
see that in my path at this stage. I mean, it might change, but anything and everything from like periods, it could be from like teens to like mid 30s or something. Like, I just want to help women experience periods that just don't control them, essentially.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I love, which a lot of people think is crazy, like I love presenting. Like the bigger the crowd, the more I love it. So
Amazing.
yeah, so like I love hosting like master classes as
Yeah.
well. So like I actually did have my own podcast for a while, but you know, because it's really really hard managing the full-time work plus the podcast and the business, it can get a bit
Yeah.
much. So
It's a lot.
the podcast still exists. I
Mhm.
don't know what's happening with it. I'd like to say it's going to come back one day, but
Yeah.
at this stage, I'm not sure. But I do enjoy presenting and things like that, like to a big group of people. So I have um, I do have a couple of masterclasses that are available at the moment. So one of them is about um, ovulation. So when it comes to your period and your hormones, a lot of what we aren't taught is that like without ovulation, like it's literally the center of everything that happens with your hormones in your period.
Yeah.
And it's like without ovulation, you kind of don't really have anything to work with. So it's just really this masterclass is about understanding why ovulation is important,
Mhm.
what could happen if we're not ovulating, and how to actually understand whether we are ovulating.
Yeah.
Because it's all good and well to say, like for example, a lot of the period tracking apps out there tell you that you ovulate on day 14, which is only applicable to like 30% of women out there, which is something that we aren't really taught about. So just
Yeah.
how to actually understand if you're ovulating and what to do if you're not ovulating as well.
Yeah.
And I do have another masterclass that is all about period pain. So literally just took everything that I did to myself, and I
Yeah.
packaged it in a nice little masterclass that just
Wow.
explains to everyone why period pain is not normal, like, you know, what it could be, like what it could be caused by, why
Mhm.
you need to get on top of it. And then I started delving into the strategies that I use. It is a
Mhm.
very nutrition focused sort of masterclass.
Beautiful.
Um, I do have a program that I'm got the doors open for at the moment of time of recording. So um, it's all about the mindset about your period. So I'm a big personal development junkie as well.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you will agree that like your thoughts create your reality. And I saw
Totally.
it was a big missing piece that is applicable not only for the period space, but it's applicable for like anything nutrition related or health related. And you probably hear people say things like, I'm doing all the right things, I'm eating all the right things, but it's not working. And then at the back of their head, they still think, ew, my period, like, or they just have this negative thought about their period. And so this program is essentially, what it does, it just really helps to explain, well, helps women to actually fall in love with the idea about their period again, to just really celebrate it the way it was celebrated hundreds and thousands of years ago. Not to that extent, but like just to really work on the relationship that they have with their period, so they can actually like not have a painful and crappy experience, to put it bluntly, essentially, like just to really help them undo all the beliefs that they've been taught about their period, because we're not really taught anything at school, and our parents learnt from their parents, and like, you know, my grandparents came from villages, so they don't really know anything about periods and hormones or anything like that. So like we're just passed on everything, and like not only that, but we're just being passed on all this shame and guilt and negative stories, and it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse and worse. So what I want this program to do is to help undo a lot of that negativity and that hatred, and to help women to actually feel empowered and excited about their periods.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you're going for like a one-to-many model, especially that sounds like it makes a lot of sense because you're working full time, so it would be very hard to do one-to-one. So tell us a little bit about that experience with one-to-many, and is that your main focus, or do you do any other like little one-to-ones in your very limited spare time?
I do offer one-to-ones. I do have 2 options available. So one of them, so they are essentially the same sort of offer, but one of them is, I'm not sure if you've ever worked with like a PT or gone to see a beauty therapist, but you just want them to just get as much as you can out in the one session, because you can't, maybe financial reasons, or you don't have the time capacity. So I've got one of those offers. And then the other offer is the same as that, but they also get like 3 months support, or like boxer support on top of that. So they're my 2 one-on-one offers that I've got at the moment. But just my personality prefers the one-to-many approach. I mean, I still am available for one-to-one, but it's just my personality just loves like more people and like being able to impact more people. Because if you think about it, like you know, you help someone with their period, like the people that they live with will benefit from that, and if they're in a relationship, their partners will benefit from that, because like they understand what's going on, and the people, like their parents, will benefit from that, and the people that they work with will benefit from that, because like, you know, they're able to show up better and be better and just be the best version of them. And it just creates this like big ripple effect. And it's like, if you're having all these like little ripples here and there, like imagine you just like create bigger change.
Yeah, huge impact. I love thinking about that ripple effect, and just like, I think that's a really beautiful thing as well for when we are starting out in business and thinking of the ripple effect. And I know this is something that helped me get through. And it's like, rather than being like, oh, I'm only helping 1 client or 2 clients at the moment, being like, whoa, I'm helping 1 person, which is helping 10 people, which is helping 100 people. And like, it just keeps exponentially growing, because it really does have that effect. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that into the conversation. And it's so cool. I love that you thrive off the one-to-many offers, and the more the merrier. Like, that's often the opposite, where people are kind of like, oh no, like I'm just going to stick to one-on-ones because I'm really scared to put other offers out there and be in front of more people. So tell us a little bit about like the mindset you've had to cultivate, or maybe it's just something that's always been built into you, but like, how do you thrive in those settings where you do have lots of eyes on you? Or like you said, you have that preference for helping more people. Where'd that come from? How'd you build that, or has it always been there?
I was that kid in school that came to oral presentations. I'm like, Miss, can I go first?
Yeah, I love that. I wish I was that kid. I've had to build myself into that woman now, but yeah, it was not that kid.
No, I don't know. I think I like creating impact, and I like making people feel good. And I think that's why, like, even though beauty wasn't the path for me, I enjoyed the work that I did. I just didn't see myself going down that path for a while. And I enjoyed making people feel good. And I thought, how can I make the most of this? And like, the thing is that I feel like even though like we're in a not like a bubble of nutrition, and we see everyone around us is like healthy and things like that, but there are so many people that aren't healthy.
Yeah.
And like there's just so much, like we're trying to do all this work, but there's also this like other like side of things that is just like there's just so much unhealthiness in the world. Like the vast majority of people aren't healthy, and the message is being pushed to do the opposite of what we're telling them to do. And the more that push is happening, the more we need to help people. And I think it's a matter of like, not I need to help people, because it's more like I want to help people.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time as well, I think that like there was always, I don't know about you, but there was always that one teacher at school. It was like, I don't understand. It's like, I'm in the good maths class, you're in the bad. Like my friend's in the good maths class, I'm in the good and the bad one, because I don't understand my teacher, whereas I like my friend's teacher better. Mm-hmm. And I think that the more people are out there teaching, even though it's essentially the same thing, like you'll understand different things better from different people. And I know that like, I mean, if that's how we felt at school, imagine how many people feel out there when it's things that they actually care about.
Yeah, 100%. I really agree with that. And it's so true. Like, because we can hear something so many times and then one person says it in a particular way and it finally lands. And we're like, thank you for saying that. Even though I've heard it like 50 times, it's like, thank you. Because it lands so differently. And like so many times, even using family as an example, like I know for me, and I'm sure this is the case for other people as well, like if I'm trying to like support my family and tell them like, oh, you know, like this would be really beneficial, or oh, that thing's like not the best for you, you could do this instead. And then like they hear it from me, they're like, oh yeah, Shana's just on another one of her nutrition rants. And then they see it on the news or something and they're like, Shana, did you know this? And it's like, I'm going to pretend I didn't tell you that like months ago, but wow, cool. That's a great idea. You should do that. So it's kind of like that. Like the more we can put that message out there, the people who need to hear it will hear it in the right time as well. So I love that you, mentioned that.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. And yeah, so cool that you've just kind of always been that person that thrives in front of many people, and you know the value in your voice, because that is so, so true and so, so important. And something that like imposter syndrome can come in and kind of distract us from. But it's like, I love that you have that like solid, yes, like I need to keep saying this because the right people will hear it.
Yeah, and I think as well, one thing that I've definitely noticed, because I've started this probably back at the start of COVID, and I've just been like showing up and building and growing ever since then. And it's kind of like your first offer, your first post won't be the best, but at the end of the day, those who are interested in working with you and will understand the way you're saying what you're saying, they're not there to like make sure that everything's perfect. Like there are certain personal development courses where like I look at it and I'm like, there's a typo, but like I'm not watching this to be grammatically correct. I'm watching this because I need this work for myself. And I think when you're speaking to like a big crowd and when you're working with big like larger crowds, it's you don't have time to think about things being like perfect, because there's just so many eyes, and you're kind of like, I need to get out what needs to get out, not what needs to be perfect.
Yeah, that's a really cool perspective. I like that.
And I think it kind of takes that pressure off like needing to be perfect, which I know that a lot of people struggle with, like going to that one to many in terms of like talking in front of large groups of people. And like when you take away that pressure of needing to be perfect, it kind of puts less pressure on you, and it just makes people feel more comfortable, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And so tell us your secrets to consistency, because as we've mentioned a couple of times already in this episode, like you have your full-time job, but you keep showing up and you keep showing up. And you mentioned like during lockdowns and COVID times, you kept showing up and doing the thing. What's the secret behind that for you? Like, because this is obviously different for everyone, but like if anyone's listening and they're really struggling with that consistency, what do you really wish you could impart on them?
Wow. I think like having the vision of your dream life in mind, and knowing that it's not I want it to happen, it's going to happen.
Yes.
Because I'm sure that most of us have, like, whether people are happy with, like there are probably people out there who are thinking, I'm still at uni, like I hate this, like I just want to get out there and build my career, like whatever they might be. They might be thinking like, once upon a time they were in high school thinking, I can't wait to be in uni, I can't wait to study this. And no matter where you are, like you know it's going to happen. You just need to like still believe that it's going to happen anyway. It's kind of like when you're at school and you're reading level 1, and then you see these people reading the newspaper and novels and things like that, and you're like, I know I'm going to get there, I just don't know how it's going to happen, and just trusting that it is going to happen. And like just knowing that even if you like have a failed launch, or if you haven't been as like productive as you wanted to today, like at the end of the day, it's just redirection. It's still teaching you something as well. Like even, pitching to brands to work with them, like my first email that I sent out, like it was nothing bad with it, but I was just like, I'm so much better at doing that right now. Like even something as simple as talking on your stories, like I was so like, I didn't want to do it. Now it's just like whatever sort of thing. And just, I think as well, like looking at someone who has that dream life that you want, and you just got to ask yourself, like, what are they doing? How are they doing not how are they doing, but just ask yourself, what are they doing? And just try and not copy them, but just try and, see what they're doing and see, does that like, was what I'm doing and what they're doing the same thing? And like, because what they're doing is going to lead down this path, and what I'm doing is going to lead down this path. Is this what I want to go down, or do I want this other life here?
Yeah, totally. And using them as like that inspiration rather than like comparing ourselves to them, being like, cool, they did it, that means I can too. And like, who are they being? How are they acting? And how can I show up as that version of me that's going to get, to where I want to be?
Yeah, because it is really hard. And like, everyone, it's funny, like everyone who's actually got a life that you admire, like they didn't get there easily.
Yeah, totally. And there's also ups and downs along the way as well. And like, even though social media so often shows the highlights, it's like everyone's kind of going through the good times, the hard times, like all of the in-betweens. But often we just see the good times, or we see, oh, wow, they built this incredible business, but we haven't seen what it's taken for them to build that. So really important reminders.
Yeah, it's like when you start going to the gym, you don't see anyone like posting like a body weight lunge, for example. You see them posting the big like 100-kilo deadlifts. Like you're not going to see the small mundane things, but that's what adds up to the big result.
Totally. Yeah. And so like, speaking of vision and like, what is your desire for your business? And I'd love to hear your vision, essentially.
Work full time.
On your business. Doing like one-to-many offers and your podcast, or what does it look like?
Eventually I'd like to bring the podcast back. I'm just not sure in what capacity or how I want to do that. I'd like to build up my office suite as well. And I do want to work on, obviously nutrition plays such a big role, and I'll always obviously advocate for that. But I just want to work really more on the mindset side of things as well. And like the energetic side, and just really combine the two, nutrition and the energetics of the mindset side, and just because I feel like that's where the missing gap is with a lot of things. And I definitely feel like our women's periods are the start of that, because so much of who we are, what we do, everything is linked to our periods, and a lot of us have no idea. I mean, I had no idea, and I'm still learning and growing with that area. But I would love to just grow this really, really big. I am actually qualified in Reiki as well, so I do want to one day hopefully incorporate some of that as well, and also learn different modalities that will help both the nutrition side and the energetic side as well.
Beautiful. I think it's so cool to like gel all those worlds and like have the nutrition, have the mindset, have the energetics, and together they all play such a beautiful part and role, and can really help supercharge people's results, because you're not just dealing on a physical level with food, you're also going deeper with mind and energy.
And I want to help I just want to help make food fun again for, like, with your periods and things like that, because you see a lot of accounts, not to criticize, but you see a lot of like foods that like aren't fun or don't look good, and you're like, I really want to make the yummy side of things along with the energetics things, because you see a lot of people who work with energetics, like I'm trying to like not jump on my words here.
Yeah.
You see a lot of like clinical side with the food, and then you see a lot of like not mindset, but a lot of like the woo-woo side with the energetics. And I really just want to make it realistic, but woo at the same time, like combine the two.
Yeah.
And I'd love to eventually have like a cookbook or two, hopefully hard copy out there, and with the podcast as well. So I've just got really big, all these big desires out there. So
Yeah.
baby steps.
Yeah, I love it. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Mm.
And yeah, I guess like any other like little pointers for people who are working full time and also want to build up that discipline like you have and that consistency, like how do you juggle and balance both? And yeah, what would you recommend for those that are currently in that stage?
Um, I don't like to use the word realistic because I feel like we kind of limit ourselves with what we can achieve with that. But
Yes,
I
boom.
do think we need to be efficient with our time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's important to understand what you're available for and what you're not available for.
Mm,
To just, and, you know, certain things like, because you are so capped with your time, what are you doing that's just like fluffing around, and what's actually being productive in your business? Like a
yeah.
piece of content, can you eventually break that down into other pieces of content? Can you repurpose your content?
Mm,
um like even certain things like setting boundaries with people
yeah.
can play a really, really big role.
Mhm.
Like I I'm very, I would, I want to use the word strict, but I'm very like, I'm not seeing people at these times and these days. I'm available this time, this day.
Yep.
Um, and I also think it's very important to have certain times. Like I have, for example, me and my partner, we have Friday nights off.
Mhm.
So like, you know, we, you know, do our grocery shopping, come home. We have Friday night pizza because that's like my go-to, like, I don't know, I call it death row meal essentially.
Yeah.
So yeah, have my pizza. My phone is on, like it's Bluetooth is switched off. It's on silent. Like no one can contact me. It's like my time to just switch off, and then you can like really get back into the swing of things the next day as well.
Mm,
I think structuring your days and your time blocking things as well,
mhm.
and also working with your cycle, like
Yeah.
not putting in so many things on your to-do list on your period, and you know, like just utilizing the different phases of your cycle and trying to maximize your energy for what's possible for you as well,
Mhm.
and to not put pressure on yourself, because at the end of the day you need to decide that it is going to happen, not I want it to happen as well.
Yes, boom, like that. It is going to happen is so potent, really, because our beliefs become our reality. So,
Yeah, literally.
yeah, I love that. That's some really good tips. And yeah, time blocking for the win, big advocate. Like it makes such a difference. And boundaries, because like, yeah, you only have limited amount of hours, even less so when you're working 9 to 5, like, or whatever your hours actually are. But like when
Mm,
you're working a full-time job, it's a huge commitment. So then for you to be able to still prioritize going to the gym and like looking after your own health,
mm,
plus your business and everything that that entails, because obviously there's so much that goes into business,
mm.
having those boundaries and having those priorities and really like, yeah, being organized. Yeah, it makes sense why you are able to balance that, because you really like have your head screwed on and you're like, yeah, cool. Like this is
Yeah,
what needs to be done.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think as well, like one final thing with that
Mhm.
topic, I do want to say that whatever you're saying yes to, you're saying no to something else. So
Yeah,
just that really helps to like keep me in focus, because it's really easy to get caught up with like different things, and yeah.
totally. Yeah, there's always a cost.
Mm.
Yeah, beautiful. Awesome. So, book question now. If you could recommend one book for every listener to read, what would it be and why?
Um, when I got the questions today, I was like, oh wow, like I can go in so many different directions. But
Yeah, so many books.
yeah,
Yeah,
one of the really trashy romance novels by Colleen Hoover, I'd say,
nice.
because like as much as I love reading books about personal development and nutrition related and like health related, I
Yeah.
think it's really easy to get to get caught up in like, oh my God, I'm not doing enough. I need to do this. I need to do that. And like, whilst it's important to be educated and like with whatever the latest in your field,
Yeah.
I think it's really important to also switch off as well. And I feel like when you're reading something like a really trashy romance, like it's easier to stay relaxed and to, you know, not be so on all the time.
Yeah, so important, because it is
Yeah.
so easy to get stuck in that loop of like, gotta be productive, gotta be productive. But yeah, I love that. And
Yes, I
such a
can't pick one. I like all of them
yeah.
that I've read so far. So just trashy romance Colleen Hoover because her books are so addictive.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that. And actually, speaking of, I know that's like different kind of book, but speaking of like education and growth and learning, you're someone who's kind of always immersing yourself in like environments that will help you up level. How has that experience been for you as you continue to grow your business and as you continue to work and just, yeah, like become the best version of you?
Lots of tears.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. Like you know, with your period, for example, there are so many things that like we think is normal, and we're just so like conditioned to think that this is normal. When you start learning about yourself, um, like I can go down the rabbit hole, but like we were essentially, like I'm sure you're aware with your personal development journey, we're so conditioned to want to do this, want to be this, want to like this, and things like that. And there's just so much that I'm like the last few weeks, for example, have been like the most intense out of like everything. And it's kind of like, wow, do I actually like this band or this hobby, or do I just like it because everyone around me liked it? And it
Yeah.
kind of, you really start to see certain personality traits that you pick up as a child, and you really start to see where has that been holding you back in
Yeah.
certain areas of your life. And I definitely think that like um it is important to know yourself, because most people don't know themselves.
Totally.
And yeah, I definitely think that if you want, it was funny, I'm not sure if you follow Manifestation Babe,
I
so
love
Catherine
it.
Zinkina.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, she once said that like if you want to learn about yourself, like have a baby or start a business.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, she makes sense now. And then when they throw personal development in there, it's like I feel like it just really accelerates everything, and it just, you feel so awake.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I'm
Yeah.
so tired, but I'm so awake at the same time.
Yeah. It's like this is exhausting being so self-aware.
Yeah, it's like there was that meme, and it's like someone on a route, like those like merry-go-rounds, and like about to fall off, and it's like my personal development journey.
Yeah, legit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so true that business is one of the like quickest routes to personal development, uncovering your patterns, conditioning, shadows, all the things. And
Mm,
it can be intense. Like it can be really intense, especially without like the proper guidance or awareness. So I love that you
mm,
do immerse yourself in those environments where you are getting that support and having that light shone on different things, even though it
mm,
can feel really bloody hard. And yeah, I've been there, I get it too. And yeah, I'm
mm.
constantly going through all sorts of things behind the scenes on my own personal development journey as well. But
Yeah,
like you just come out the other side so much better off for it.
definitely. And I think as well, like these different environments and rooms, they kind of show you what's possible out there. So
Totally.
like my grandparents had like, you know, the mechanics business, the fish and chip shop.
Yeah.
My parents had the butcher shop. So you see like physical labor, and like you're like, if that's what having a business is like, I don't want that. And
Yeah.
like getting in these environments, and that's why I'm especially grateful to the online space, and especially your podcast as well. It just really helps to show you what's possible and what's out there. And I
Yeah.
think, yeah, personal development just really helps you to see like how other people are running their businesses and how other people are running their lives. Like I've seen um, like um, one of the containers that I've been in, they were talking about wholesale things and how they approach things. And I thought I can like totally take this and like utilize this in my own lens and see how this will impact my business. And it's just really helpful like to see what's possible out there.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. It can be really, really expansive.
Mm.
And I think on that note of what you said earlier as well, around like you really get to know yourself through personal development, I feel like that's one of the keys to business, particularly growing a personal brand, because when we know ourselves, we can show up as ourselves.
Yeah.
And like really be magnetic rather than showing up as like this like robotic, like conditioned version of us that's like, oh, this is how I think I need to show up because this is how I think people are going to like me and want to buy from me. Whereas that's kind of like, it's not magnetic. Whereas when we can just get rid of those layers and get rid of all that conditioning and be like, no, you know what, this is me and I'm just going to show up unapologetically and authentically, that's when people are like, whoa, I want some of what she has.
Yeah, I was actually saying this the other day. I was like, I feel like it's so much easier to show up when you're being yourself. And I've got my two personalities. One's like, you know, no shoes and like really just like basic. And then the other side that's like totally like done up and bougie and stuff. And I'm like, I have my two personalities and I like to throw both like in the mix. So
yeah, it's what makes you you and what draws like your people to you as well.
And everyone's got their own version of that. So
yeah. Awesome. Well, this has been such a beautiful conversation. And thank you so much for sharing your experience in both of those areas of that work and in your own business, and personal development and all the things. Do you have any kind of like parting words of wisdom or advice for the listeners today?
I think if anyone tells you that something's not possible or to be realistic, like run the other way.
Yes. Boom. I love it. We don't play in realistic here.
No.
Yeah.
And I think as well, like, sorry, but
no, that was.
I was going to say, I think if as well, if like, because it's really, a lot of people don't really know what it's like to work with a nutritionist as well, or like why you need to emphasize on being healthy. And like, I think as well, like the traditional healthcare system is like one-to-one. I go physically somewhere, whereas like a lot of people are new to this online world and just wanting to offer something because you can, like you don't need a reason. Like I want to do this because I can as well. And I think when it just attaches so much like heaviness to it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Desi. And
no worries. Thank you for having me.
To see it all unfold for you.
Thank you.
So welcome.